Hello everybody, welcome back to Doom Productions, home of the No Budget Film School, and today we are going over the cinematography of video Carnage. So a lot went into the look of this movie. Jordan and I had a lot of planning, a lot of discussions about the way we wanted the lighting to be, the cinematography to be, how we wanted the camera to move throughout scenes. Do we want it locked down or do we want it handheld? So I want to break down everything step by step for you on the kind of things we took into account, what we considered, what kind of things were we looking for to accomplish in this movie, what could have done better, what would we change for next time, and what's just my general take on the cinematography of video Carnage. So starting off, let's just get it out of the way. Let's talk about the gear. This movie was shot primarily on a Canon EOS R. We shot mostly on a Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter lens. So that's their standard f1.8 lens. It's a very common lens. And we also shoot a little bit on the Canon 24 to 105 f4 lens. And we also have an older Canon 55 to 270 or 255 lens that we use. And that's for like the really, really long shots that we have in the movie a little bit. And other than that, we shoot a couple scenes on a tape camera. So that's just an old Canon tape camera. It shoots on mini DV tapes. Can't remember the model off the top of my head, but they're all kind of the same, so it doesn't matter a whole lot. And for our lighting gear, we primarily just used one main video LED light. It's just one of the cheap models you can get on Amazon. They're like 30 bucks. We also had these little closet lights. I'll actually show you right now. It's just these little tube lights you can use on Amazon for about $15 to $20 a piece, depending on who you purchase them from. And they're great because you can kind of stick them anywhere. They're magnetic, but they're also, you can just tape them up onto walls that aren't magnetic. There's just a whole bunch of uses for them. We tape gels to the fronts also, so we get these different colors like blue and red, or blue and red. So there's a lot of variety and ways you can use these lights for your scenes, both for just kind of more normal shooting, but also for more creative ways and where you can put your lights. So now that we kind of covered the basics of what gear we used on set, let's go into the color of the movie. This is the standout thing for the look of the movie. We took a lot of time to kind of craft the way we wanted the colors to look in each scene. And in general, the rule we set up for ourselves was we gave each character a color. So Mike, Jordan's character, is blue, so we used blue lighting for that character most of the time. For May's character Sam, we chose red, and finally for Travis's character Vincent, he is green. Green is kind of typically our villain color that we like to use in some of our other movies, and it's also the color we like to light bathrooms in, because we think bathrooms are awesome in green. And so once we had those rules set up for ourselves, we can kind of start playing around with how those colors would interact with each other on scene, kind of the same way that the characters interact with each other on scene. So if Jordan, or if Mike is having a conversation with Sam, we'll kind of pop in those blues and reds together and let them kind of clash with one another. And even if a character isn't in the scene, but their presence is felt, or if a character is thinking about them, we'll let that color kind of sink in. A great example of this, I think, is when Mike is laying on the bed and is kind of reading or thinking about the mystery of what happened to this person who was murdered that he's just discovered about. You'll see some red poking in of after he and Sam have argued, and there's kind of this like lingering tension between the two of them, even when they're not together in scene. And then the same for if Vincent is nearby, or if Mike is thinking about solving this case or getting into it, you'll see green start popping up more and more into the scene. So going along with all of that, we don't use RGB lights just because we don't have any. It'd be really awesome to, because gelling can kind of be a pain, but also gelling is really cheap for your lights. So you can even buy plastic notebooks that are kind of transparent and cut those up. We've done that plenty of times in the past. Or you can just buy normal gel material, which will hold up better to heat anyway. Sometimes the stuff can warp if you put it in front of a hot light. So there's a lot of ways you can play around with your color. So just find what's easiest for you and start doing that. And over time, you can kind of change and evolve, and you'll find what works best for you and your setup. Now, when it comes to how do we like kind of match our lighting, or how do we set the levels of the scene, we just kind of eyeball it. What looks good in the camera is generally what we're gonna do. Also, I've used this camera for a while now, so I know kind of how I can push my lighting, and I know if a scene's coming through a little dark, how high I can push my ISO to compensate for that. And likewise, I know what I can push it to even further in post if I need to make an adjustment in lighting later on. But we just kind of go with what our gut says. We don't even keep continuity in lighting between, a scene. So shot to shot, the lighting can change quite a bit for us. We just don't worry about it. We just kind of focus on what makes the shot look best. We don't worry about, does this fit in the continuity of the rest of the scene? So the Doom Productions look is changing aspect ratio. That's one of the things that we love to play with. So how did we decide when to change the aspect ratio? We knew going in that we wanted there to be a big shift in the movie once May's character Sam enters Vincent's house and goes to rescue Mike. So we decided that would be the point where we would change aspect ratios, and really the whole feel of the movie shifts along with it. Because for most of this movie, we had the camera locked down on a tripod, so there wasn't a lot of movement. There were some shots here and there that were handheld or had a lot more movement to them, but we tried to really restrict that as much as possible. And again, with the handheld, we wanted it to feel like you were there in the room with May walking through this house. Danger could be lurking behind any corner. It kind of gave it a bit more of a raw feel, especially for these long takes of walking through the house. And it kind of feels like this maze after a while of different rooms and corridors. So that was kind of what we wanted to do with the changing of both the aspect ratio and with changing how the camera was being moved through scenes. So there's a pretty big effect that we pulled off in this movie that was kind of a logistical challenge for us, just because May, one of our actors, could not drive a car. So we had them instead park in my driveway in my car, and we would turn off all the lights so that the driveway was completely dark, and we'd put them in the driver's seat, and we'd have either Jordan or I standing in front of the car with an LED light on a light stick, and we'd have it extended out as far as possible, and we would be rotating it through the shot so that it would look like there's street lights moving past. And we kept it very minimal. We only just had a blue gel on. We didn't try and fake street lighting because it was just too complicated. We couldn't find a way to do it convincingly, so instead we kept it very minimal by just having the single light source on May. And when it comes to shooting night footage as a whole, we tend to keep ourselves to just using one light as our main light source. So when Mike and Sam are scoping at the house out at night and they're walking through the woods and around the trees, we would just have one light kind of lighting them from behind, about the 3/4 angle, and that would kind of be our moonlight, and that was plenty for us. There could definitely be a case where you'd want to have more lighting in the scene, but we really wanted it to be dark and minimal, and you can just see them, so we kept it just to one light source that we just put up as high as possible. It works great for the scenes, and we wouldn't change it, but there's definitely ways we plan to evolve that look in the future. But when you're just starting out, a single light source at night is all you need. It looks great. Don't worry about trying to light this entire environment because you're never gonna be able to do it. And it's nighttime anyways, it's pretty dark. Don't stress about lighting a whole scene. Just get your actors visible, and that's plenty. So throughout the movie, obviously, videotapes are a huge part of the look of this movie, and we had plenty of scenes that were shot on tape. So what we would do for that is we would just have a handy cam that had just a Hi8 tape or a mini DV tape inside, and we would record a scene with that on set. No digital effects. This is just how the camera footage looked. And then what we do from there is we would digitize it by putting it from a tape onto a DVD and then putting that DVD onto a computer. If you need a full tutorial, just watch the intro to Video Carnage and that will walk you through it, because that's exactly how we do our tape converting. And then from there, we would put the footage into the timeline on Final Cut and we would edit it from there. And there were actually a couple of times where we would edit it and then put it back onto a VHS tape to then play on a TV, because we needed it to play on our TVs, and we don't really do screen replacements because it looks better just to do it for real. So all that being said, shooting on tape, we didn't put a lot of care or time into it. We would just shoot it really raw because that's how the movie needed to look. And I think there was a little bit of a green tint put onto that footage, but other than that, it's pretty much exactly how it was from the tapes to the TV. So that's an overview of the cinematography of Video Carnage. There is tons of stuff that we did on set, and if you want to see kind of more of a raw breakdown, check out our last video that we shot on our on-set experience for Video Carnage. We just have a lot of long behind-the-scenes footage that we let play out, and you can kind of see how we operate on set and what our setups kind of look like. But if you have more questions about Video Carnage, leave them down below. We are always happy to answer them, or you can message us. We're on Twitter, Instagram, all the places you can think to find us. We are there, and we are happy to take more questions. So subscribe for our next video. We have plenty of stuff coming up in the coming months. And until next time, see you guys later.